Once again, it's your friend Sizwe. I want to welcome you to What They Do. Hey, yo. Once again, your friend Sizwe. I'm in sunny Trinidad. Yeah? What they do. You know what they do. What they do is the place where we say what's up, what's poppin', what's going on. And here today, we say what they do Trinidad. Yo, we sponsored by JJ Smokehouse. We inside, it's lovely inside. And I can't wait to show you what we have for you today. Real artists, real vibes, real everything. Once again, what they do. Now you know what they do. What they do is a place where we say what's up, what's poppin', what's going on, some Miami slang. And today we say, what's he seen? Because we in Trinidad, right? I want to welcome my good friend. She's a publicist to the stars. She knows her way around the block as it relates to entertainment and specifically this is the Soca world, right? So Adanna, what they do?
What's up, sis?
No, what's the scene?
What's up? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
And thank you for having me.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Thank you for coming.
It's so good to see you, my friend. It's been a while.
Likewise. Mm-hmm. Well, I see you on the circuit. I see you traveling and doing your thing, with all these artists.
Light work. Well.
Yeah. So Adanna is a publicist.
Correct.
One of the leading publicists in the Soca community. Really, but beyond Soca too, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I would say so.
Mm-hmm. I met you doing Entertainment Mako.
Correct.
Right? Which was, I don't know, I guess it was the early start of some of this podcasting, right? Can you talk to me about your Entertainment Mako days and what that was?
So Entertainment Mako was my baby. It started when people were just realizing that there were that we could create a place to tell stories. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we were fully in tune with the WWWs as yet, but we were using like blog spots and stuff, right? So I wanted to tell stories of the Caribbean community, artists, people behind the scenes, and creatives all across the board. Tell their stories and what make them unique. So I started this series of question and answers, written formats, just on a whim, an idea from a friend. And I did it for quite some time. A lot of interviews, some controversial interviews, some breaking news here and there. And it was great while it lasted. And then I just had to rest her down and move on to something else.
But I don't remember it being like salacious.
It wasn't salacious. I think I was always very mindful of how negatively words can be used and how that could really affect someone. So I don't think that I could have ever been malicious, even though a lot of personal information about celebrities came to me. Like, people were very willing to tell me things. And I didn't want Entertainment Mako to be weaponized. It started to become one of those things where people felt that they could tell me anything about other people. And I had to make a decision about if I wanted to tell those stories or not, you know? And then in trying to figure out if I wanted to tell those stories or not, I also recognized that there was a gap with people not being able to tell their stories. And that's how I kind of segued into really, really honing in on public relations, really, yeah? I know we didn't get there as yet.
Yeah, sure.
I just had to add that in. So, yeah, I was always very mindful about how terribly a bad story can affect somebody. And as much as the hits and the numbers and the shares and, you know, the comments looked very beautiful, I had to decide many times what I wanted to tell the world and what I shouldn't, you know?
Were you formally trained in media? Yeah.
So when I started, I'm trying to remember when I started Entertainment Mako, I want to say that I would have been either pursuing my associates in media and communications, or I started after that.
Okay.
And again, just really one of those situations where I am very intense when I'm hyper focused, right? And I like to be taken very seriously. And I feel as though if I need to be taken seriously, I need to make sure that I'm educated enough so nobody could question that part, you know? So I did do my associate degree in journalism and PR. Journalism and PR was my associate degree. And then I did my bachelor's in media and communications. And then a assortment of other, documents, a lot of certifications, it's a lot.
You're fully qualified.
Now, up to this date,
And then you went into being a publicist. So from entertainment market straight into doing that?
Into PR.
Into PR.
So around Entertainment Marco time, I remember Entertainment Marco also started because I wanted to start a print publication telling stories. That shit was expensive. Where was I going to get that money from? My dad, may God rest his soul, really would have given me anything that I wanted. So I remember telling him, I want to start this print magazine. And I did all this research. I couldn't afford to print a magazine. And so Entertainment Marco came into play around that time. And then I remember one day saying, because I recognized, going back to that point, I recognized that a lot of our creatives didn't know how to tell their own stories. They didn't know how to articulate who they are, how they want to be seen, and how to tell their stories. I would ask someone to send me a photograph, an article that I was writing, and they'll send me a selfie from in the bathroom. And I just couldn't understand, like, how do you want me to take you seriously? So then I realized that there's this huge gap because people don't know how to tell their stories. They don't know how to present themselves. So I remember having a conversation with my friend, and who is my mentor, and she doesn't love for me to mention it all the time, but Natasha Andrews. And for people in the industry, if you've been around for long enough, you'll know Natasha. Natasha manages Lyrical. But back in those days, Natasha and her then husband, they separated. Sean Noel was part of the Asylum band, Mastermind Productions, and they also had Mastermind Productions. And I told Natasha one day, I said, hey, I really want to do public relations. I really want to be a publicist. And I need to kind of try to figure out, how I want to do this. But I know I want to do it in entertainment because I love music. I had an appreciation for the stories and the music. And she told me, listen, all the projects that come through Mastermind Productions, we're going to give you those projects to work on. So that's how my opportunity in music started with Natasha. I just went to her with this aspiration. So they were putting out albums. Sean was putting out productions for artists that were coming through their studios in New York. And she would tell me, okay, well, what do you think about this project? What could we do? And I was there calling media houses in Trinidad and asking for email addresses and getting contact numbers and pitching. At that point in time, I didn't even know that I was pitching. I was just like, hey, I'm going to figure out how to do this without any formal training at that point in time. I didn't even start studying or anything as yet. Natasha, in her real life, does something that has to do with the English language, because I don't want to talk her business. I don't want her to kill me. But she would read the press releases, and she would, guide me and say, hey, this intro is great, but you can fix this. I think that the angle should be a little bit more here. And then I just remembered one day, I can't remember what it was, I wrote a press release. I want to say maybe it was like for PELF, because he did a project. And then I opened the newspaper and the press releases in the newspaper. I was like, what the hell? I'm published? Can't talk to me now. I reach, but really that's how the opportunities came. And through those opportunities was really how I started to realize, I can do it this way. I can do it that way. I found my own way. Yeah, I found my own way to do it. And then, the story continues.
Wow. You said that you found like artists didn't know how to tell their story, right? Why do artists, beyond they just don't know how to tell their story, why do they need a publicist? Why is a publicist needed? And does everybody need a publicist?
I mean, everybody don't need a publicist. I have to keep it really honest. A publicist is a luxury, You know what I mean? You have to be at a certain point in your career to be able to grasp the concept that you need someone who can help guide you and curate you and train you and advocate for you in a certain way, right? So you have to be at a certain point in your career. This is also something that you need to be able to afford, you know what I mean? And depending on where the publicist is at, it's like walking down the aisle and seeing different types of bottled water. You can get a bottle of water for 50 cents. in America at least. And then you could probably, pay up to $10 for a bottle of water. I just say, you have more expensive water, right? So it just really depends on your brand, the person that you're trying to work with. So I would say, depending on where you're at in your career, you may not need one starting off, but when you reach a certain point of your career, you really need someone who can help you polish and shine. Yeah, it's almost like I describe it as going to buy food, right? We eat with our eyes. So before you taste the food, you have to know if the food looks appealing. You've never bought food that looks disgusting, right? So when you go to purchase food, you're looking at the food on the display and you're like, okay, that chicken looking good, macaroni pie looking good, that's that pork, whatever. And then you decide and you assemble this plate. And because those things on that plate is really what the publicist does, put together this nice meal that's palatable, that could be enjoyed, really. So that's what I would say, it depends on where you're at in your career. Right now, you may not need one, but eventually you'll reach a point in your career where you'll realize that, hey, I need someone who can sit with me and help me figure out the proper strategy, work with your management to achieve those goals. And it's not just about, a lot of people think that public relations is just about generating interest in the media. It's not just that. That's just a small part. Media relations is a small part. There are other things. It's curating the story, and it's a long run. It's not an immediate remedy. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of hand-holding and processes and, assessing and monitoring and doing and undoing and doing again until you get it right, So that's what I would say.
Does your publicist need to be a friend?
No.
Right? No.
And
what I mean by a friend is not like your partner. I mean like that person has to really get to know you and
your publicist should definitely be somebody who takes time to understand who you are, where you are, and that person also needs to be very honest as well. And I think with any aspects of business, whoever you have supporting your initiatives should be someone that's trustworthy, right? You need someone who can sit with you and say, yeah, this is working, this is not working, this can work, and this is not going to work. So it's like a client approaching me. I remember years ago, I had this client who came to me. She was just starting off, and she said to me, oh, I want the covers of all these women magazines, and these are all the things that I had, that I want, right? And she's very aspirational, but she's also very unrealistic. And I had to say to her, and she cried. She thought I was very, very mean. And I said it in the softest tone. I said to her, listen, I understand where you're trying to go, but we're not there yet. So what we have to do is do some baby steps. These are the things that I propose. If I have to represent you, I would do these sorts of reach outs, because in order to acquire this type of coverage, you have to be at this level. And you're not there as yet.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you can't eventually reach there, but you know what? You're going to have to manage those expectations. She cried. She thought I was mean. And she also said, oh, I didn't believe in her talent. And it's not that. I think sometimes people have grown accustomed to having people around or wanting people around who will continuously tell them yes to things, right? And while we all want to hear yes and nobody likes to hear no, right? We need honesty in order to grow in this space. Yeah, so... sometimes a hurt feeling is just a hurt feeling.
Yeah. I remember that there were some times when you were doing some work for me, right? And you would call me or message me and say, Sizwe, take that down. Right? I might write something on Facebook and you'd be like, take it down.
Oh, gosh.
Is that your job too? Is that your job to kind of be present in like what they're doing and say like, or just you're hired for a certain thing?
Of course. Yeah. Who wants to have to deal with a client who always doing shit? Because I could say this here, right? Really and truly, it's about managing public perception, right? And then, you know what? I take that back. Let me take that back. Because depending on your client's brand, they can be allowed to do certain things. So it's really about smoothing out those edges, right? So you may have a client who might be a little more raunchy and rough around the edges, and there's some things that they can get away from doing versus another client who has a safer brand, right? So based on what you're trying to do and the conversations that you're having in the public space, listen, this is right now, this year here, 2026. Before it even hit 2 seconds, it viral. You understand what I'm saying? So really and truly, if you're trying to curate and create and generate a certain level of attention and a success, we have to be mindful. So if I have a client and that client is towing the line of, yeah, this could mess up your career, I'm gonna call you and say, what's that? Take that down. You know, I mean, it might have 1,000 screenshots, but I'm going to tell you, is either you're standing by that or you're taking that down. This is going to be an issue. And when it becomes an issue, don't call me. I'm not going to answer because what? I do try though with my clients to go through the conversations of who you are and what you're trying to do, right? What are you comfortable doing? What are you uncomfortable doing? What are the sore points? What are your triggers? Stuff like that. You know, so sometimes I could look at comments under a client's photograph and say, yeah, this one go trip them off. And call and say, okay, so I'm looking through social media and I'm seeing a few comments here and I'm telling you, don't respond, okay? And if you respond, the response is going to need to be something like this. You can say it this way and mean exactly the same thing and tell somebody go on F off. Yeah? So yeah, I would look at social media and say, are you bugging? Are you mad? Take that down. You know? So yeah.
In the age of today's social media space, do you find yourself policing social media a lot more than anything else?
My clients, and I'm good, man.
Yeah.
This set here, and honestly, I've never really had much situations where I had to say, deal with crisis. Really and truly, maybe one in all the years, right? So I think the clients that I represent right now, they know exactly who they are, what they're trying to do, and what they have to lose. So they're very mindful with how they put themselves out there, and that's very important to me because these are conversations that we have. I may have had one client recently who might be posting a little bit and say, Gail, I'm feeling your man problems, you know. I should be like, Gail, I don't care what nobody say. I posting for jokes. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to say your man owning you. But I mean, at the end of the day, who cares, you know? But I don't have to police. I mean, I monitor social media to grasp how the public is responding to clients. You know, it's very important to read those comments. Sometimes there are things that would stand out to you that helps you understand if your clients are reaching the audiences or if not, you know, and even the comments that may be perceived as negative doesn't always have to be perceived that way, you know, because we are in a space where we are putting out information for feedback, right? We're posting photos for people to like and comment.
Respond.
And we have to be able to accept those responses and opinions with an open mind. Even in times where it may be disrespectful, there is a delete and block button. So ain't nobody coming on my social media. And my clients, I tell them all the time, you making somebody frustrate you on your own page and the phone that you just pay internet for?
Yeah.
Like, who's stressing you? But this is your profile.
Yeah.
Block and delete that. Let it go. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, block
you
and
know?
delete.
So, I mean, the policing, not as much, but I do pay attention to social media, you know, to just kind of see like, oh, are they doing a good job? How people feel about them, the comments, you know, are we reaching the people that we want to reach?
You are the publicist to the stars, right? I don't know all, but I know some. Cohen, Dubois, Pompa, Patrice. You know, we saw Lady Love on the road the other day, and I was like, I think that's Lady Love, right?
Yeah.
I was watching her, and I was like, but then I saw you, and I was like, oh, Lady Love. There's no question, right? Your approach to managing these stars, does it start the same, or are you taking each one at an individual basis?
It's definitely at an individual basis. They're all at different places and spaces in their lives, and they're all different people. So while you know that the attention is required, they all require different things. You know what I mean? Some of them may be coming in from a place where they may need a little more work, a little more coaching, some more conversations, lengthier conversations, different types of conversations. For example, let's talk about Lady Lava. Like, Lava is my sister. You know what I mean? Her manager is my bro. He's my best friend.
Okay.
You know, a lot of people may see me in Lava's life now, but don't know me in Lava's life during the pandemic when we were on the phone for hours talking. I remember one day my mom was in the car with me. I spoke to Lava I live Princestown, from Princestown to Point Fortin, I'm back, right? Talking about what can we do? We're in the pandemic, what's happening, music, her dreams, her goals, her aspirations. The three of us on the phone, Dion, myself, and Lava on the phone, just talking for hours, right? Planning, figuring out what are the possibilities. And that was before Ring Finger. That was before mainstream industry got to know her. So now people may see me and be like, oh, she just started working with Lava. No, that's not the case. With Pumpa, I met Pumpa, I want to say it was his first visit to Trinidad. I was working at the Copyright Music Organization at that point in time. A girlfriend of mine at that point in time, I think, was helping out Pumpa. She brought him there to get registered as a member. I met him there. I think, if I remember, he was in Trinidad around that time with Mr. Killer.
Okay.
Pumpa and I became friends and remained friends, right? Checked up on him throughout the years. We would talk ever so often. A-list came around. People see me pop up, oh, where Adanna come from? Years of friendship, right? When I started working with Kerwin, we were friends. I started working with him professionally the year that he had Bacchanalus. And then I think I started working with Patrice maybe the year after that when they had I Am Soca, if I'm not mistaken. I met Patrice because of him. Started doing some work for her, and then she asked me, hey, could you be my publicist? I want to do some more things for myself and I need help, you know. So again, I've been around a little bit. Yeah.
Do you find it more difficult to be a publicist for female artists, or is there a scale there? I don't know. Females are judged more harshly. Yeah. It's way more challenging. Like, we say it all the time that it's a male-dominated industry. It is. We are judged differently and we are treated differently. Doesn't matter how hard you work. Yeah. There are things that men can do in the industry, and when a woman does it, we're discussed differently, right? And I mean, it's in other industries as well, right? So I would say that the push and the approach with female clients requires a little more consciousness, because we have to think about perception. Again, last week I was having a conversation with a client and I was saying to her, I was telling her about a situation, and I said, oh, please just be mindful, right? And I said, I don't want you to say I'm mothering you, right? I said, but I just want you to just be a little mindful. I said, because as women, we're judged differently. They're going to say such and such and such. And I explained the situation to her. And she said, you know what? You are right. And I am being mindful, but thank you for nudging me about it again. Because I said, they're going to say such and such. You know, they don't care about anything else. That's what they're going to say. And that's unfair to you, but that's what's going to be said. So with women, it's always more difficult, you know. So female clients require a different approach, because now we have people looking at you, how you dress, you know, if it's hanging, if it's swinging, if it's tight, if it's not tight, if it's fat, if it's skinny, you know. If you make a child, you're not appealing anymore. You get married, nobody wants you. For 10 pounds, where's she going with that? You lose size, you're too skinny. You wear a weave, what's she wearing that for? Your makeup, oh God, gas stylist. It's so challenging. Yeah. It's also way more expensive as well. You know, a man, one jeans, whole week, a different shirt,
same shoes, nobody cares. They're not scrutinizing that. With women, tougher. We judge so much more harshly than our male counterparts. And that's just the design. You know, we have to work harder as well. And then they age us out. And when I say us, because I am not in the front, but I've seen where, you know, they start to say, well, she done past 40, she clocking to 50, that thing shaking, hanging and swinging, what she doing, still whining. You understand?
Yeah.
60-year-old soca artists, you nobody's telling you anything. They jumping, screaming, oh, they love him. A woman at that age, they're trying to age you out. Unfair? It is. But it's the industry that we're in.
I have been kind of, over the last couple of years, struggling with some of my mental health, right? Namely this paralyzing anxiety that I've been dealing with badly.
Yeah.
I imagine that it's not just me, like, that has that, right? And especially in the industry. Do you find that some of the artists that we see, right, like Patrice, who had a whole song about this thing, right? Do you see a lot of that from our artists, and do you think that we as the consumer need to be a little bit more mindful of some of the things that we're saying or doing?
Oh yeah, definitely. I joke all the time and say that there's a thin line between creativity and madness, right? And I've seen how quickly our creatives or our artists can be triggered, and I've seen so many times how unkind or unaware the public is, or the public can be about situations, because these are literally human beings that have the same struggles as us. You know, the only thing is that they have more visibility, right?
Vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and they all have their own unique situations and struggles. I mean, Patrice spoke about her anxiety, and during that time of, imagine, promoting a song, going into studio to record and saying to the producers, oh, I'm just having a real tough day today because, you know, I'm suffering with my anxiety, right? She just wanted to listen to music. And then they all spoke in a room about their own struggles, right? And came up with this song. And then going on radio to promote this song, right? And knowing that some people may not understand. So that in itself was taking a risk. And I want to say it was the week of the song. I was there with Patrice. I got that call before she even knew that Ricardo passed. Yeah. Okay? We were in Guardian Media Building. I would never forget this day. We left from Slam and we walked over to 105. Anybody who knows Guardian Media Building, you know, building. And she was doing that interview and my phone rang. Yeah? Her manager called me, who also was managing Ricardo, which is Dollar Sham. And he said, Adanna, you guys still on the radio? I said, uh-huh. He said, walk outside. I walked outside. And he said, there's a situation, and he laid the situation out to me. And he said, I'm not sure if this is definitive, but this is what I'm being told, and I don't know what to do. I need you to figure it out. It was Patrice and I and her driver. And she was on air. I called her driver and I said, listen, this is the situation. When we get out of here, I don't even want you to hand her back her cell phone. I have her cell phone, but she loves her phone. She wants her phone. I called her mom and I said, this is the situation and we need to get her home, you know? And could you please come to the house because we need to get her home? So imagine battling with anxiety, going into studio, promoting a song, being on air, coming off of air, and trying to get her from the radio station to the car park. And before she gets in the car, she finds out. Somebody calls her phone. As much as I was trying for her not to find out before she got home, news travels quickly. And then seeing someone go through those motions and battle with that even made it even clearer it made it so clear. Like life could change very, very quickly, you know? During the pandemic, Kerwin also spoke very loudly on social media about his struggles with his mental health. He started a series, I don't know if you recall, during the pandemic, something called Spot, where he had singers, producers, and stuff like that to distract him. And he has spoken about his struggles with his mental health, and I've seen some of that with him as well, you know, and seeing people try to navigate through that space. I remember myself even battling with some instances of issues where I wasn't quite sure what that was. And I remember a friend saying to me, I was even actually Natasha, to be quite honest, she gave me a project to work on. And she was calling me and I couldn't complete the project. And she referred me to a client. She spoke very highly of me and I couldn't finish the project. And I said to her one day, I said, Tash, I don't know what it is, but I can't work and I just don't feel like myself. And she said, explain it to me. So I started explaining to her. I said, I'm having difficulties, you know. And she said, you know, you're slightly depressed. I said, no, I'm not. I'm doing everything that I have to do, but it's just a little bit of a struggle, you know. And that's when I was able to really recognize, okay, so you can experience the same thing as well. Even though I've seen clients who are artists and creatives maneuver through those spaces, right? And I've supported them all through it. I didn't realize that I could have been also a person to experience some of those emotions as well. And yes, it's I think because social media allows us the opportunity to have access to people.
Prime access.
Right? You feel as though you know these people. You don't know that. You don't know the daily struggles, the lack of privacy, and honesty, and sometimes support that they experience. You know, it's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of trying to figure out if the people around you are sincere or if they're disingenuous. Are they honest? Are they dishonest? Can you trust them? Can you not trust them? Are they going to steal from you? What do you want people to see? You know, and it's real situations. Like, we are all human beings, you know, and it's tough. And a lot of them sometimes, even going through everything that they're going through, still pick up a mic and go on stage. You know, and a lot of them, you'll hear them say on stages where they're able to cope. And after that, when those lights come off and those chairs stop, they still go back to a place where they feel completely alone. And you hear people say that I have so many people around me, but yet still I'm so alone. It's real. Like, it's a real situation.
In that situation, still was outside doing coping, I guess, through her music and her performance.
And she was very adamant about wanting to perform, and I could admit that I thought it was crazy. You know, I thought, you sure you want to do that, girl? You sure? You sure you want to perform? But I understood that, like, sitting in that silence could send you mad. You know what I mean? So she needed to do what she needed to do in order to feel some semblance of normalcy, you know, even while she was going through her loss and her sadness. And as much as people were around and trying to offer her support, like, who can help you with that? You know, who can help you with that type of loss, you know? And it's not until you experience loss, the loss of someone that you love or whatever the case may be, you know, you understand that. Like, for example, last year I lost my dad, you know. Never thought that in 2025 that I would have been telling the story of a dad who died, you know, someone who never had any major illness, you know, who just literally got sick. I got married last year. He was in the hospital dying, you know what I mean? and understanding that when somebody tells you like there's a level of sadness that you can experience that nobody could help you with is a real thing, you know? So even experiencing that for myself, even while I understood, is a different type of understanding. I mean, that sounds like if it's not even a sentence, but you have to experience a certain level of emotion or see people go through certain things to understand that, like you just can't be harsh and you don't know what someone is dealing with at that absolute time. That you can be one smile away or a hug away from helping someone off an edge, or you can be one yell from pushing them over it, you know? So I always tell people, it pays to be kind, you know, just be kind because you just never know what somebody is going through. But I think fans, they're just people who are also just people. They just can't grasp the concept that you don't even have to comment. You could just move on, you know? That harsh comment could literally be the reason that someone feels even worse about themselves in that moment because you don't know what they're going through when they read that, you know? So, yeah.
I have two questions. I don't know which one to ask first, but I'll go with, to kind of break up this piece.
Yeah.
Where are we in the music, right? You have access that most people don't have, right? To these artists. Where is the music in a good place?
Listen, I think the music is in a good place. I think the music is in a good place. So if we're in 2026, so let me talk about 2026. I'll give you two stories, right? Tevin Hartman, Rock With Me, right? When I heard that song, I fell in love with it, right? From the jump. Didn't know Tevin personally. Heard his name a few times. Probably saw him a few times. Never had a conversation with him. Tevin, I'm giving this story because maybe you might give it. And I didn't know that it was him that sang the song. So I remember hearing the song on radio. My mom asking me, who sang the song? I said, that song like Farmer. That's what I said to her, right? And then I want to say maybe it was the day after I was listening to radio and Tevin was being interviewed. And then I hear the song and I said, but I heard that yesterday and I tell mommy, I think that I Farmer because she was saying, oh, the song is nice. So yeah, I went to an event later on and I saw him and I went up to him and I said, hey, I mean, we don't know each other, right? I said, please forgive me if this is offensive or if it might be off-putting. But that song is a very strong song. I said, and you need to stop playing, right? I said, people literally are under the impression that it's Farm and Happy or Neutron that sang the song. I said, I am in groups where I have shared the song and said, this is a very strong song. And men saying, but I didn't know that was Tevin. I thought that was Farmer, but it's song like Neutron, right? I said, you need to push your song. I say, you need to push your song. Just so I told him. So there were a couple other people who were there who kind of heard the conversation. I say, yeah, you need to listen to Adanna. I say, you don't know me? I said, this is advice I just get paid for. I'm just telling you, right? Push your song. So a few, I guess earlier this year, I saw him at Teja's concert. Well, of course, I started following him on social media because now I want to see what it is you're doing. And I will double tap, I will comment, I will look at your stories, I'll give you encouragement. So he started posting and he's posting and I'm liking and I'm commenting and it's flames and whatever the case may be. And I saw him at Teja's concert and he said to me, I really appreciate that buff you give me, you know. He said like, no ego, nothing. I really needed that little buff. Give me a little nudge to, you know? Not saying that I was responsible. Maybe he might have needed it. And I want to say that, like that song, Rock With Me is a great song. I think that Tevin is a good example of somebody who is talented and has what it takes. So for me, with him, the music is in good hands. Crystal, Dudu Darling. Crystal calls me maybe a few months before Carnival. I know Crystal, I know him very well, I know his management. And he called me, he had a conversation with me about the song, you know, and where he was at in his career. And of course, I don't want to talk about those parts of the conversation that we had. But he called for some advice. And I gave him that advice, right? And he said, you know, Adanna, I really appreciate your honesty based on some of the questions that he was asking me. And we agreed coming off of the call, like, bro, a good song is a good song. Push your song. Like, don't get lazy. I told him, I said, don't even study about the ego, bro. Whatever opportunity you get, where you can get in front of people, do it. And I saw Crystal pushing and pushing and pushing. And then I went to sleep one day and got up. Everybody loved the song, right? Everybody loved the song. And with Crystal, the music is in good hands. And then we have Anika Berry, you know, and we have Imani Ray, and we have Nessa Preppy, you know, we have Lady Lava, we have Kutain, the Freetown Collective, we have Jimmy October.
Yeah.
Listen, we have so many artists that are coming up that are doing music their way. They are authentically themselves, which is also very important. I love Kutain, I love what he does, you know, and I love that he's finding his way and his space. The same thing for Jimmy October. Every time I see Jimmy, I always show him love because I'm like, bro, you're doing it your way.
Yep, his thing.
Slow and steady wins the race. You know what I mean? You're curating this space and place for yourself that works so well. Mainstream know about Kutain now, last year. But a lot of people don't know about the work that he's been putting in for the years where a boy keeping shows and selling out because he have this core demographic that love what he's doing. So for me, the music is in good hands. And then of course, you know, we have our young veterans, as I would love to call them, Voice, Patrice Roberts, Lyrical, and forgive me with, you know, the other names, Bungie Garland, like everybody, we have our veterans who are doing it. And then we have our acts who are finding their way to do things differently. And the music song and sweet, I find. You know what I mean? I think the music is in good hands. And I think sometimes we're just so critical of our creatives. I mean, and they need criticism, Like, they need criticism. But to me, music is art. You know what I mean? And it's like going in a museum. What might be appealing to me may not be appealing to you when we walk into the museum. So it's the same thing. I think that we should just appreciate the efforts, take it for what it is. If we have constructive criticism, we give it to them, but we also encourage them to do better. You know what I mean? Because creating music is hard work. And then we're also in an industry where every year you have to prove yourself. And that is not easy to do. So I think that we should just be a little kinder, you know, encourage them. And for any other artists that I forgot to mention, I mean, we have a slew of talented artists coming out from Trinidad and Tobago, and of course from the Caribbean as well, who are giving their all to the genre.
Yeah.
And they should be applauded and encouraged. So I believe that music is in good hands.
So the question, I told you I had two questions. I didn't know what order to put them in, right? The next question is, and I wanted to talk to you specifically about it, right? And that is something that's bothering me. And it's just what seems to me a little bit this colorism thing going on in mass, the depiction of mass and how it's portrayed to maybe the consumer. The party pictures, right? It just seems sometimes that it's a particular shade that is put forward. Is that real? Am I noticing something that is imaginary?
No, I don't think it's imaginary. I think that people have different perceptions of what may be appealing or what might be beautiful to them. And based on that perception or maybe that bias, they feel that that's what they should depict or share with us. And if we have the opportunity to curb that perception, then we can also contribute to the conversation. So I think having this conversation is also contributing to maybe changing the narrative. Trinidad is filled with beautiful people. And we're blessed to be a melting pot of different races and ethnicities and religions. That's what makes us beautiful. I think sometimes we forget how beautiful of a melting pot we are. And sometimes we need to nudge people and remind them that, listen, it's not just one type of us, but it's many of us. And we're all beautifully created, you know?
Okay. You did well with that question. I think you're trading.
Oh gosh, I trained myself. Check me out if you guys need media training, okay?
Donna, what I'm trying to incorporate in my show is I want one of my guests to ask a question of the next guest.
Okay.
They don't know who you are. They don't know what's coming next, but to ask this question, right? So my last guest asked, who is the most influential person in regards to your craft? What is it you do? Who is that most influential person to you?
Oh, that's a good one. Because as a publicist or as someone in communications, I draw inspirations from different places and spaces, right? But there's this publicist and communications practitioner who's based in the US by the name of Judy Smith.
Okay.
Right? And you know the series Scandal. So there's a character in Scandal called Olivia Pope, correct?
Okay.
And that character was created around the individual by the name of Judy Smith. And she has done some amazingly great work as a woman of color in public relations and communications. You're a sportsman, so you know Michael Vick. You know, he had some issues with dog fighting, and she was correct. And then he's one of the only players to have ever been convicted, served a sentence, and went back into the game, right? Completely rehabilitated. Judy Smith was responsible for that. And I think that we all should have people that we look at who look like us, yeah? And she is one of the names that's very top on my list. But there are others, obviously. But that is a name that I would love to mention.
That's what's up. Staying in context of what it is that we're doing, you don't know my next guest, but what's a question that you would give to my next guest to answer?
I would ask, if you had to see yourself in 10 years, who would you want to be?
Okay.
Because that's a question I ask myself all the time. And that's what I'm working towards, my future self.
And who's that person?
That person is still figuring out. But what I do know is that person is, and I said it the other day, and it's more personal than career-wise. That person is somebody who is just filled with happiness, going through my own personal challenges that I've gone through with major loss. That person is someone who just wants to take care of her family. You know, I said to my mom the other day, all I want to do is make sure you're good. Yeah. I'm a wife now. So that means making sure that I'm a great wife, you know? So that's what 10 years looks like. First, finding work-life balance. But while it might sound so vague, it's being completely happy and understanding what happiness looks and feels like.
Okay.
So,
But
me first.
that's what's up.
That's what's up.
Adanna, I want you to know that I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much, my friend. You want to make me cry, guy?
No. I've known you. First of all, you've had a major role in my career in the earlies, and if I've never told you that, I appreciate you greatly for that.
I appreciate you, and I love you so, so much. You're my guy. And I will always continue to support you. You know, when you started this podcast, I reached out to you and I said, love what you're doing. You know, so I am very happy to see you in this place and this space. I'm happy to see you happy. And doing what you're doing, and I commend it, and I will always be here to support.
Thank you.
And share, and I wish you all the best. And thank you also for taking a chance on me when you were trying to figure out your shit. You called me.
Well, you know, they say one hand don't clap. True. You know? And so I needed you way more. Than, you know
I think we needed each other because we were both figuring things out as well. You know? So yeah.
So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next time. When next time you come to Miami, we'll bring you back. Maybe talk some more things.
Yeah.
And that's it. Adanna.
Sizwe.
This is Adanna, Entertainment Mako, Publicist to the world. Once again, what can I say? This is another great episode. Do remember to like, subscribe, all those different things. And we in Trinidad, and is what's he seeing?
What's up, though?
All right. Boom.